when you have an opportunity to seize on a moment, the biggest issue we're dealing with right now is I sense an opening to break the Israel lobby stranglehold over our country. Zohran's victory, we've been talking about Zohran for months, and the fact that he was able to break through, I think in many ways is symbolic of why the ideology, and at least its stranglehold over our country, is going to break. And when somebody like Tucker Carlson is using his platform and Marjorie Taylor Greene is using her platform, whether you support them politically or not, and are using it to speak out against the state of Israel, that is very powerful and can be very impactful. And here's what they had to say. First, they had to speak about the state of Israel, and then they even gave kudos to Zohran, interestingly enough.
Since I've become a member of Congress since 2021, we have voted on 22 resolutions for Israel, 22 of them. All kinds of resolutions, denouncing anti-Semitism, supporting Israel. We voted on 22 of those. We never vote on resolutions proclaiming great things about America or defending certain Americans or defending Americans in general. But we have voted on 22 resolutions in the House defending Israel.
How many of you?
So that's crazy. That's so insane.
The other thing that you have to remember, and this is where I would argue with Marjorie, is to say, if you really believe this, and I don't doubt that she does, then why are you not fighting for the very policies that would rally as many people behind the concept of, let's say, single payer healthcare, for example? Like, that would be an example of truly turning a corner. And it does seem that Marjorie is the type of rogue politician like a Thomas Massie who could fly in the face of the entire, neoconservative ideology.
But again, the problem, and it's a hard one to overlook, is that she's a bigot. And so I'm like, I kind of get, it's like, I agree with you, Donald James. They're not on our side. They're not on our side. They have no intention of being on our side. However, if they can use and are using their platform in a way that gets our side what we want, even if it's for totally different reasons. I mean, she's just a bigot and has this America First nationalistic kind of psychotic agenda going. But if she's willing to push people and fight against supporting Israel, then that's a good use of her space and her platform. So yeah, no, I do not think they're on my team. There is no universe where she and I are on the same team.
No, but this again is,
broken clock's right twice a day.
Yeah. And this is a case where the broken clock is frozen on the time that we need it frozen on. That's the other thing.
You voted yes on?
I don't know my exact record. The last one I voted no on, and then the one before that I voted present because I just started getting sick of it.
Well, that's kind of it. I mean, I've always noticed this, certainly in the last, I don't know how many years it's been, a while, where Republicans in the Congress are, always talking about Israel. I'm not against Israel. I've always liked Israel, so I haven't really noticed it. Okay, fine. Love Israel, love any country, whatever. But it feels like something has changed. Like, why? And clearly it has for you. What is that thing?
Well, I think here's the situation. It's coming to a point where it's so obvious all the time in everyone's language, the social media posts they put out, the statements that they make. They have to proclaim Israel. They have to proclaim their faith and loyalty in Israel and how Israel is our greatest ally. And it's a statement that has to be made over and over and over again, to the point it's becoming like, wait a minute, what about our own country? What about our own people?
It's kind of like going to church and constantly telling yourself that, Jesus is coming to save us during my lifetime and, things like that. I'm just putting that out there. But as I've often said, the biggest thing about Israel and why it's going to fail is because not only can they not hide what's going on in Gaza right now, but it is in everybody's face. It's in everybody's face. And they are expecting you to be loyal to a foreign nation. Well, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for anybody who knows politics, knows for a fact that she has substantially large political ambitions. despite what she says, despite what her intentions may be, that people think they know, that she's just going to sit in Congress for 30 years. I don't believe so. I believe she has every intention of running for the U.S. Senate and becoming a much bigger power player in the political infrastructure. So I think she's looking ahead, and she senses that the breaking down of the state of Israel is really happening. And if she is at the forefront of that, especially as the MAGA movement evolves past Trump into what will hopefully become more of a fiscally conservative anti-war party, then she has the opportunity to lead it. And I get the sense that that's her calculation. Do you surmise that that's part of her modus operandi here, as far as?
I've never found her to be that bright. I've never found her to be particularly bright. So I don't know that she puts that much thought into a lot of stuff. I don't know who she works for. I don't know who she gets her money from. I don't really know much about her. The few things I've seen are bigoted and stupid and ignorant. But the fact that she's willing to stand up to people in her own party says more about her than anybody that's on the Democratic side of things. But yeah, I mean, she don't impress me much. Now, I don't know whether or not she'd be able to win a statewide race. I don't know. She seems like the kind of person that, if given enough rope, will just hang herself. But what do I know?
Yeah, well, no, I don't think anybody thought she would get to Congress. But then again, she's a smooth operator. She's calculating just like AOC is, no question.
And we have so many problems here in America, and we talk about this all the time. $37 trillion in debt.
You see, when you start talking like that and you don't actually understand how the economic system works, that's where Jen is right, where she says that this person is not intelligent.
No. She's just spewing talking points that are her standard talking points. She's got this is not somebody that can think outside of whatever her parameters are. She doesn't like that. And I don't know who gives her talking points, because I don't know who funds her.
Well, I wouldn't suspect her to be the type of person that really has too much of an independent thought process on her end, as far as just randomly coming up with stuff. I mean, she's probably fed things, but I don't know. She's probably very off the cuff, I suppose. It just, when you
I think that she likes getting a rise out of people. I think she likes the sensationalism aspect of it. I think she likes that. She likes playing the game. And that's fine. Maybe that suits her. I don't know.
And if you're not going to distinguish the difference between the debt and the deficit, then again, you really should not be talking about this. If we have a trade deficit, let's say, and you're concerned about the ability to have well-paying jobs stateside, that's fine. But when you talk about debt, you're not actually addressing why the so-called concept of debt exists. It's a question of the government prints money, or the Fed, however you want to look at it, and we, the taxpayer, have to pay taxes to avert any type of serious inflation problem. Instead, they're still under this notion of we, the taxpayers, are in massive amounts of debt.
They need that narrative, and people like her love that narrative because it helps them rally their people. They get people angry about where their tax dollars are going. They get people angry. The problem is they end up directing their anger to the wrong people. People like her encourage kicking down, and that's the problem. She doesn't stand for helping oppressed people or working people or regular. She has no concern about that. She's just a white nationalist. So again, it's but if she wants to use her platform to convince people that follow her and that support her that supporting Israel is bad, I'm with that.
Just like you and I were speaking before, our kids' generations. My kids are 22, 25, and 27. And our children's generation, they can't afford rent. They can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford insurance. They can't buy a new car. They can't find a good paying job. They're living month to month, paycheck to paycheck, credit card bills stacked up. And they literally look to the future going, how am I ever going to realize the American dream? And it seems...
Well, you would realize the American dream if you supported tuition-free trade schools, for example. If you supported a single-payer healthcare system, these individuals would not be dependent upon their shitty-paying job to get some form of health insurance. It would just be available. Hence, there would be more of a libertarian type system instead of an authoritarian type system, where the individual liberties would be much stronger because they would have their health. They would have the ability to learn a skill. These are the types of policies that people in the 14th Congressional District of Georgia should be talking about with their representative. If Marjorie truly cares about these things, then these are the types of issues that should be talked about. I'm not
she
saying
doesn't care. Marjorie
maybe
doesn't
she
care.
doesn't, but that's what she needs to be confronted on. Marjorie, you're saying great talking points. This is how you actually solve those problems, but she's not going there.
The problem I have with her and people like her is they come from a place of anger and hate. They do. They give off a vibe of, I'm so angry, but the problem is not at the right people, and that she rallies and bases everybody. She uses fear. She uses anger. She uses drama. She's not sincere. You don't get a sense that she actually really cares. And I just find her to come off as like angry and hateful. And I think she appeals to angry, bitter, hateful people. So that's the problem. It's not my kind of, it's not my preferred method of representing.
I agree. We'll finish it up.
It's hopeless for them. But then in Congress, everyone is chasing and pursuing and proclaiming their loyalty to a foreign country.
The problem with Marjorie also that doesn't get talked about enough is that she commits a hell of a lot of insider trading. I mean, a lot.
That's what I'm saying. So her motives have nothing to do with, morality. Her motives have nothing to do with that. That's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't have praise for her.
But what's interesting is what they said regarding Zohran. Now, of course, they're not technically supporting him, of course, but here's what they had to say.
That guy was the only person in the New York City mayor's debate to say he wanted to focus on New York City. All the candidates were asked, if you could visit a foreign country, what would it be? And they, of course, all had an answer. I think most said Israel. Great. And he said, I wouldn't go anywhere. I'd stay in New York. And like, if I want to meet Jewish constituents, I'd go to their synagogues, their homes or whatever, but I'd be here in New York because that's what I'm doing. I'm running New York. That's my job.
Well, he gave the right answer.
He gave the right answer. He gave the right answer, at least. And he's talking. I totally oppose his program.
Absolutely.
Oh, God. Wait, let's get that in there, you elitist piece of shit. I totally oppose his program. Oh, my God. Free transportation, oh, my God, groceries for people. I can't have that.
So if you agree with Mamdani that New York City is unaffordable to live in, and of course, if you were to line up the top 4 reasons why you cannot afford to live in New York City, the first is cost of living, also known as rent, which people can't afford. Number 2 is the cost of food, which is out of control. In fact, that Greek billionaire has been exposed for being one of the biggest price gougers and not tax cheats, but a wage theft cheaters of his employees. That's just one example. So Zohran wants to bring a government-funded grocery store. He only mentioned one. Maybe he brings like this one giant grocery store. Maybe it's
actually my understanding is it's 1 per borough. So it's 5.
Sure.
It's 1 per borough is 5. And I only know that because Lee Camp did a little thing about the horror of that, how horrifying that would be to, give people subsidized groceries that otherwise can't afford food. We don't want that. We can't have that.
No.
Let's not be ridiculous.
Number 3, transportation. Transportation is out of control, and transportation should be subsidized in New York City. In fact, they've been attempting to fix the problem by having what's known as surge pricing, so that people do not run the congestion into the city, which is a huge problem. And as a result, they bitched and moaned about it, but ultimately people ended up taking a lot more public transportation, taking the subway system. And that is something that, again, should be the cost of doing business in a city like New York City.
That's not radical, by the way.
No,
That's not radical. There's places that had that. My understanding was California used to have that. Like, there's places that have had free transit. That's not like a crazy concept, by the way. It's amazing to me how things seem so radical when there are things that actually used to exist here until the people convinced you that you're not worthy of that. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take it away and then charge you for it. And and people believe this. It's like, I'm telling you, we have like serious, we're delusional.
And then the fourth one, of course, is healthcare, which is probably the biggest crisis of them all. And of course, in the state of New York, which should have the New York Health Act tied to federal funding, that's the only way it would work, as Steve would probably attest. At the end of the day, you have the Democratic Party establishment that is standing in the way of passing the New York Health Act. Who knows what an impact somebody like Zohran will have as the New York City mayor in pushing the initiative for a New York Health Act.
And don't get me started on that. It was hard for me to not talk about MMT to some extent with her regarding the idea of the healthcare in individual states, let alone an individual city, and how that is not the best way to go about it. But I didn't want to I'm almost scared for Steve to see this.
We'll see how he reacts.
I don't think it works, but he's talking about economics.
Yep.
And everyone else is talking about foreign policy. Why is it hard to talk about economics, domestic economics?
Because they have to be swearing their allegiance to Israel.
And they have to be swearing their allegiance to corporate special interests, which the GOP does as well. So the corporate Democrats, as Shama was saying, makes it very easy for Trumpism to become a mainstay in politics, where you don't even have to address whether you're going to do anything. You're just going to thumb the eye of the scumbags that are of the ultra-liberal class that believe they always know what's best for everybody. And we all know that they do not. And so do I think that there is anything that you can really write home about in terms of the conversation that took place between Marjorie and Tucker? Probably not, in the sense that they're going to look to really be on our side, in terms of these types of policies. But if we can get them to continue to push forward on the issue of Israel-Palestine, then that is a tremendous win.
It is, because their audience, the fact that their audiences are getting exposed to an anti-Zionist sentiment, and to just see how unbelievably absurd it is, the amount of our policy in our Congress, in the People's House, that's discussed about Israel more than any other, people need to know that. And I do think that that's a good idea, that people do know that information. And so far, what I've seen is she's done a fairly decent job not conflating it with Jews. So, so far seems kosher.
Well, when Marjorie puts out tweets like this, you know that she's a fearless person, that she just doesn't care. And that, in many ways, as unlikable as she can be, you got to give it to her. She's willing to say that Israel killed JFK. That's a ballsy thing to say, whether you like it or not. But she's willing to say it.
The fact that she's willing to put out in a post the combining JFK's assassination with the state of Israel's nuclear program is very bold.
Yes. And nobody, listen, I honestly can't really think of any other congressperson. And this again gets back to the whole idea of feigning support and love and fealty towards Bernie Sanders and AOC. Do you think they would ever put out a message like this?
No.
Even if it's
they
true.
Voted for Israel. They voted for Israel. That's the thing. There's no getting around it now. It doesn't matter what you say if what you did was vote to give money to Israel. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And but a lot of it is theater. There's no question that a lot of it is theater, because if you're not getting other people to go along with you on these core issues, then it's kind of irrelevant. But I also believe that it's going to become, and that may be true. USS Liberty says that Mossad and CIA used LBJ to take out JFK. Hey, listen, if you look at JFK's policies towards Israel and you look at LBJ's policies towards Israel, it's not hard to put two and two together.
No, and I always say it's it's almost like Occam's razor, which I know Rachel loves that I told her what that is, but it's the concept of the person with the most to gain is usually behind whatever that was that gets them to the position that they're in, right? And so I always looked growing up at, well, who had the most to gain? Vice president. Without even knowing the story, the background, the policies, whatever, just think it through. I mean, that's just how it works. The person with the most to gain is usually a person that's involved in the situation that gives them what they have to gain. It just makes sense. And, you know, he wasn't even supposed to be in that position to begin with.
Then Bernie should have never pretended that he wanted to be some type of a political revolutionary.
He never did, to be fair.